Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips I think every single mid laner needs to know. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Lolfit. I do educational content, do tips videos, guide videos, and also stream here on YouTube. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player as well as to give you a better understanding of the role as a whole. I put a timestamp at every single point of my video. They're going to be up at the top, as well as the bar down below is going to be segmented so you can skip around from tips. If you want to contact me directly, more than welcome to join the streams, and I'm going to put a link to my Discord down below in the pinned comments. If you want to send me a direct message, I try to be as interactive as possible with any questions you might have. Now, I'm a bit limited with this format, only doing 5 tips, so make sure to add your own tips down below. Love to hear you guys' thoughts. And with all that out of the way, let's jump into tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 1 for the mid lane, with the current meta in Season 11 and how snowballing it is and how important it is to really get your jungler ahead. You really want to be finding champions that can get a bit of lane dominance, things like Zed, things like Talon, things like LeBlanc, things like Syndra, that can get pushed very easily and roam to help your allied jungler. A lot of games, believe it or not, are decided over these different scuttlers and these scuttler skirmishes that happen between particularly 2 carry jungles. Now, it's not important if it's something like a Sejuani jungle into a Zac jungle, but when it's something like a Graves into a Nidalee or an Evelynn or a Hecarim going around, this is going to be extremely important for you to rotate and help out your jungle as quickly as possible. Now, this is particularly important for people that are consistently complaining about having poor teammates while they are doing really well themselves, because this is the single-handedly the easiest way to spread your lead around the map, is by really enabling your jungler with first rotating for scuttles, as well as pushing the lane into the enemy tower and then rotating into the enemy's jungler. Being a solo laner and a mid laner, you are going to have a higher level advantage against them, and you are able to have access to your level 6 before they are. So the easiest way to get a kill on an enemy jungler is waiting for the second rotation of the red or the blue buff and sitting in a bush, making sure that you have a sweeper or a pink ward, and making sure to use your ignite and ultimate, and you should be able to kill most junglers with your overall experience advantage as well as a ult difference. And that will wrap up my tip number 1 for mid lane. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, when you are looking to play a mid lane champion, and overall when you are playing a solo laner, it is extremely important that you maximize as much resources as you can possibly get around the map. Now, if you struggle with CS, say if you're under 6 CS a minute, I would highly suggest you find champions that CS at a very good clip. Things like Malzahar, things like Zed, that have some built-in extra damage against low HP targets, or that just auto-push the lanes with the dot and AI damage, can be extremely effective. As well as just getting champions that can CS well, you want to look to get as much CS around the map, particularly when you are doing well and you know that you are pretty good or above average for the person in your elo, because you want to put as many resources towards the people that you know you can carry, and at least you are a known quantity, as opposed to maybe a feeding jungler that is first timing Graves. It might not be the best for them to get the CS, so always look for invades and different times where you can pick up as much jungle CS, as many scuttlers, as many enemy camps as you possibly can. Again, this is going to come off of pushing in the lane and roaming on the enemy and really just getting access to as much farm as possible when you are around the map, because this is just the easiest way to carry in lower elos, is to get as many resources as you can and hit people on top of the head with a huge sack of gold. And that will wrap up tip number 2 for mid lane. Alright, and jumping into tip number 3 with playing the mid lane. Now, you are responsible for providing a lot of threat for your team, because you are one of the solo laners. You need to be able to have as much impact and bring as much impact into certain objectives. This requires you to be consistently watching timers and to get off good back timings before you are going to look to control an objective. Now, there's a couple different things you want to look for when you are about to have a dragon fight. Control wards is obviously a must and is huge. If you're playing assassins and looking for flanks, Oracle Lens can be quite effective. Now, this might be a little bit experimental, but in my opinion, before very important dragon fights, things like souls, things like 3rd or 4th dragon, maybe a baron fight, you want to grab a elixir. It is going to provide a huge amount of value for the buck. Now, it is only a temporary buff, but if you only have 700 gold. This is going to provide you the absolute most impact in your team fight. So always when you are looking to back right before an objective, think, what can I get out of this? Now, temporary items usually provide the most amount of power. Sometimes a stopwatch is going to provide you with more power in a team fight than a BF sword. So always look for the absolute premium back before these extremely important objective fights when you are playing the mid lane, because you are responsible as a carry in the game to get as much bang for your buck from these roles as possible. And that will wrap up this tip. All right, and getting into tip number 4 with Zed, I want you guys to use this as a very common strategy and a great way you can start learning and advancing in your current elo. If you are a hard stuck, I really recommend that you listen to this. Now, if someone just absolutely destroys you in lane, they are giving you a blueprint on how to carry games, and I really want you guys to start applying this logic. Whenever someone beats you, say they're playing talent and they're just consistently roaming down bot lane in your elo and they are just killing the bot lane over and over again, getting fed, and then snowball the whole game. I want you to try out that strategy yourself in the next game. Just consistently roam down bottom lane in the next game, and one of two things is going to happen. First, you're either going to, you might just win the game. You might just destroy the game using the enemy's strategy, and it will be great. Second, you might get countered by the enemy's mid laner's movement, and he might know the answer to that type of strategy. So whenever these kind of odd, wacky strategies happen, I want you guys to pay attention to them, try them yourselves, and you will learn the weaknesses of that strategy. This works with champion matchups. This works with different playstyles. It is a great learning tool. Say you have a really tough time against Zed in the mid lane. Pick up Zed. Try playing a couple of games of Zed in normals, and your weaknesses will be shown, or you will win the game. And this is just going to be a great way for you to advance in your overall league. If you have any questions about this particular strategy, it is my favorite way of approaching league. You can hit me up in the comments down below, and that will wrap up tip number 4. Alright, and getting into the final tip for the mid lane. This is going to be extremely important. That is understanding item spikes and when you are very, very powerful. Now, there are very simple item spikes for particular champions. For example, champions that buy Triforce first, it is a very, very obvious strong strength that is going to happen. Assassins that pick up Night Harvester first, they obviously want to continue or start fighting as soon as possible, because this is a very strong one item power spike. So when you are playing the mid lane, and particularly when you are playing assassins and in a snowbally meta, you really need to have a strong understanding of how strong you are in the current state of the game with your item spikes compared to the enemy power spikes. You should be consistently looking at the enemy's backs and what they are getting. The last thing you'd want to do is be playing a high impact assassin and the enemy has bought a random stopwatch and you did not check that. So I want you guys to be consistently checking out the scoreboard and seeing where enemies are at. Particularly, again, if the enemy has a jungler that is really greeting for a very, very long clear, that they are doing a full clear around the jungler and they are delaying their back by quite a bit, there is going to be a really large power differential between you and them. So again, as in tip number 1, you should be looking to invade the enemy jungler when they are in this really weak state and when you have just recently backed. So consistently look for different power spikes, and when you are playing in the mid lane, when you are team fighting, you should be identifying the highest value target that you can kill with relative ease and taking that person out of the equation. That'll wrap up my 5 tips, guys, for the mid lane. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below. And as always, take it easy.